Welcome to I Am Human. I am your host, Dr. Yami, and it is such a pleasure to have you here today. If you have not already subscribed to the podcast, I would greatly appreciate it. And if you could leave a rating and review, that would be even better. And what would make me even happier is if you shared this episode or any other episodes that you think would benefit someone else. To be human means to potentially consume recklessly without regard to the effect of waste. But to be human also means to be mindful and deliberate and to pay attention to how we consume in order to reduce waste and protect our environment. Today, we're going to hear from a channel favorite, Carleigh Bodrug, who is just amazing. She is the CEO and founder of PlantYou, and we're going to talk about her latest book, Scrappy Cooking, 140 plus plant-based zero waste recipes that are good for you, your wallet, and the planet. And it's fantastic. But before I tell you more about Carleigh, I also want to tell you that when it comes to waste reduction, it can feel very overwhelming because there are so many different things that we can do to reduce waste, to reuse things, do all the things that we can do to protect the planet. And you can definitely go down a rabbit hole of all the things that you can change. But what I want you to do is start with where you're at, let go of any guilt and shame that comes with realizing how much we're impacting the planet with all of the things that we use and throw away, and just start making little tweaks, starting with this book. I think this book is so fantastic. And Carleigh writes it in a way that is just so compassionate and approachable. And I know that you'll be able to start implementing some of her tips right away. I also want to let you know, if you don't already, that in April of 2020, I did an entire series on the podcast. The podcast at that point was known as Veggie Doctor Radio, but it's still all on the same feed, on minimalism and waste reduction. So that was the whole month of April. And I think there was 2 episodes per week on that topic. Minimalism, how you can go through your house room by room and start to decrease the amount of waste that you're producing in each one. I think for me, the hardest room still is the bathroom with my bazillion products that I use for my face and my hair and all the things. So it's not going to be something that you are going to be able to change overnight. And it's a journey just like anything else, with ups and downs and changes and twists and turns. So just have fun with it, do the best you can, and enjoy the journey. So let me tell you more about the fabulous, beautiful Carleigh. Carleigh Bodrug is the CEO and founder of PlantYou, a New York Times bestselling cookbook and author. A bestselling cookbook author. She's not a cookbook. She's a cookbook author and self-taught plant-based chef, famous for her simple take on low waste and vegan recipes. She's back with her highly anticipated second cookbook, Scrappy Cooking, 140 plus plant-based zero waste recipes that are good for you, your wallet, and the planet, which will be launching April the 2nd to align with Earth Month. The concept for Scrappy Cooking was born from a shocking statistic. The U.S. throws away more food than any other country in the world, over 80 billion pounds per year. This inspired Carleigh to start a series on social media by the same name, Scrappy Cooking, which shows viewers how to transform commonly wasted foods into delicious recipes. The mission of the cookbook is to help readers save money, reduce food waste, and eat healthier than they ever have before. Boasting over 7 million followers between her social channels, Carleigh has gripped social media with her simple and delicious low-waste recipes that make plants the star of the show. And this is Carleigh's second time on the show. We will put a link to her first appearance so that you can hear more about her background and her journey, how she came into plant-based cooking. But in this episode, we're going to focus on scrappy cooking. So we talk about what it means to be scrappy, what is the definition of being scrappy, why she's so passionate about scrappy cooking. We talk about the statistics of how much food gets wasted in the US food supply, why it's such a big deal. Why would we'd even care about throwing food away in the trash can? She gives us tips about preventing food from going bad, like how should we store our fruits and veggies so that they'll last longer? Best before dates, is that something that we need to strictly adhere to? We talk about what people find it hardest to do when they're starting on their scrappy cooking journey, what is something that they may be resistant to at first, but then start to learn to do. Her all-time favorite, most fun scrappy hack, and her other tips for minimizing waste in our kitchens. It's a very valuable episode. I know you're going to learn a lot, and I hope that you will go out and buy her book, pre-order it now if you're listening to it before it has been released, and also order her first book because it is plantastic. So thank you so much, humans, for tuning in today. I appreciate you so much. I hope you love this episode and fall in love with Carleigh. It's not difficult, so you probably will. And now let's welcome Carleigh Bodrug. The information on this podcast is for informational and educational purposes only. It is not meant to replace careful evaluation and treatment. If you have concerns about your health or well-being, please consult a healthcare professional. Carleigh Bodrug, you beautiful human. Welcome back to the podcast.
I'm so excited to be here, and I'm really excited about your rebrand. I love the new name and format. It's just so refreshing.
Thank you so much. And I know we're just going to have a wonderful conversation. Your new book is beautiful. Of course, you did so well with your first book that I'm sure you're feeling the pressure, right? But it's just so fun to have this theme that you have created for the second book. I think it was just like a natural evolution and something that we definitely need. But before we get into it, let's just start with definitions. What does it mean to be scrappy?
Scrappy to me means that you're willing to take risks. You're a little bit of a feisty fighter. And I really feel like that's what the book is all about. I always say that one of the best parts of plant-based cooking is the fact that the stakes are low. You're not putting a piece of chicken in the oven and all concerned about whether you undercooked it and are going to get sick. I always say plant-based cooking is so much fun because you can get messy in the kitchen. You can screw something up. You can fix it. And that's what Scrappy is all about. It's just being bold, being fun, and eating plants.
I love that. I love that definition. And it's so true. I feel like I lost so much fear around experimentation when I transitioned to a plant-based diet. I just felt so free and expansive. Like, what's the worst thing that could happen? Whenever I would cook meat before, especially seafood, I was always so afraid. And now we do have evidence that whenever we cook with meat, we're basically leaving E. coli and salmonella and everything all over our kitchen. And there are real risks. There are true risks there. So whenever you're cooking with plants, it's so much better. I think the other thing that came out to me whenever you were saying that definition is resourcefulness. And that's one of my values, is being able to walk in the kitchen, no matter what, if we haven't grocery shopped that week or whatever, see what we have and make something amazing. So do you feel like that's also part of that scrappiness, is just being resourceful with what you have?
Absolutely. So when I was writing this cookbook, Scrappy Cooking, I didn't want it to just be this kind of like encyclopedia on how to use your scraps, like banana peels, for example. We have all that, but really the core foundation of the book are meals that are completely customizable to what you have in your kitchen and to empower you to be resourceful. So exactly what you said, when you get to the end of the week and you have like half a bell pepper, a broccoli stalk, whatever in your fridge, the recipes are super customizable. I actually have a whole bunch of meals marked with a Kitchen Raid badge so that you can integrate whatever vegetable or produce item you have in your fridge into these meals. And what I really hope is that it empowers people to learn how to cook and be more like risque with the veggies that they're integrating, because so often, and I'm sure you've experienced this yourself, when people are following recipes, they get really nervous to interchange things. And again, going back to our first point, with plants, the pressure's off. If you screw it up, you can fix it. It's supposed to be fun.
And I call that intuitive cooking, feeling like you don't have to follow a recipe perfectly. But what I love about your book too is that, I guess, when I think about scrappy cooking, I don't know what comes to mind, but I looked at your recipes and the pictures and I'm like, oh my God, this looks gourmet, but you can make it from the scraps you have in your kitchen. So that's really cool. Well, let's talk about, why are you so passionate about this in the first place? Passionate about scrappy cooking and scrappy living?
One of my main motivations for going plant-based was because of the environmental implications of animal agriculture. And it was shortly after I had published my first book that I learned the statistic that stopped me in my tracks. And it's that 30 to 40% of the entire US food supply ends up in landfills. And this is staggering, way more than any other country. And you really think your mind first goes to, okay, this food is decomposing. That's fine, right? But actually, when it ends up in landfills, it emits methane gas, which is a really bad thing for global warming. Honestly, food waste is actually a bigger contributor to methane gas emissions and global warming than the entire airline industry. So that puts things into perspective, because I think in school we're taught like it's transportation, taking too long of showers. But a lot of this, especially when you think of the plant-based piece in this, comes down to what we're putting on our plates. And the majority of food waste actually happens in the home. So people are throwing away so much food that could be eaten. So not only am I inspired from an environmental perspective, but I'm sure you can relate. Grocery prices are just astonishing these days. Inflation is crazy. I know most people I've surveyed my audience, and most people don't get out of the grocery store for under $200 per week. So when we think about this as well, it's crazy to think that a lot of us are throwing away 20, 30% of the food that we're buying. So I just became really passionate about this concept of not only eating plant-based, but reducing waste as well, which really is where scrappy cooking was born. I threw up a orange peel candy recipe one day, not thinking much of it, and people just went nuts. So I'm like, oh, there's something here. People care about this. And that got me really excited. And immediately I knew that that would be the concept if I was to ever write a cookbook again.
I love it. I'm so glad you did it. And it really is so heartbreaking to think about the waste, because I know we don't want to do it, because, you see those memes of like, you're ordering pizza and the vegetables in the back of the fridge are looking at you like, because people think, okay, I can't use those anymore. It's too late. I'm just going to ignore it. And, that cognitive dissonance of me feeling bad about myself for not, first of all, not eating the vegetables. And second of all, wasting the food is painful. So I think more people want to know, how can I be more effective about this? How can I make sure I'm using the food? And if I waited a little too long, can I still use it? Is it okay? So I really love that you did that, so that you can help us with that. Okay. So first thing I want to go over is the prevention piece. Prevention is very important. So can you give us tips on, first of all, how can we store our fruits and veggies so that they'll last longer in the first place? So we're not getting to like the wilty, sad veggies in the back of the fridge. And what are ones that we commonly store inappropriately? What are like the big mistakes that we make on storage of our food?
Storage is a big one. And I do want to say, before we dive deep into this, that I don't want anybody to feel guilty. I am a food blogger. I still waste food. It happens, and it is so common, and it's common for a reason. And it's because we're all just so busy, and we don't necessarily take stock of the food we have. We have crazy lives, and first, let's start by not placing any blame, right? So when we think about food storage, this is a big problem, and it's food spoiling before we get to it. So there's some big keys here. And I hear a lot of people, the number one I hear is like getting spinach. You get a box of spinach for the week, you put it in your fridge, and then at the end of the week, you see it in the back of your fridge. It was well-intentioned, and it's wilting, right? So for greens like that, one thing you can do is when you get home, open the package and put a clean cloth or paper towel in it. And that's going to suck up some of the moisture, which will prevent spoilage sooner. As well, if you know you're only going to use like half the package, you can also put that in a freezer bag, pop it in the freezer, and it's amazing for smoothies. Go one step further, you can blend it with a little bit of coconut water or coconut milk or just plain water and freeze it in ice cubes that you can then add to smoothies. So greens are a really big one. The next one I see a lot of people is cilantro and herbs. They just go bad way quicker than they should. So I always recommend people store things with like stems like that, like bouquets with water, because they need a water source to stay fresh. So that will help with freshness. And again, they can be frozen. You can mix them with vegetable broth or oil and freeze them so that they become like little herb bombs that you can add to dishes. So utilize your freezer when you can, because it's a great one. So those are kind of like the two I often hear are those greens. Again, carrots and celery, you can slice up into kind of like matchsticks and store in water to keep them hydrated. And oftentimes you can rehydrate these things. Potatoes, I know they sprout very easily. So when you get them home, if you have a garage, they're great in a cool, dry place in a paper bag. And they'll stay fresh for longer. Onions out and separate from things, because onions can emit like a gas, which will spoil things faster. So if you're more cognizant about the storage, it's going to help, but also getting ahead of it. So if you see something's going like a little bit off, either freezing it or cooking it right away is going to prevent it from growing mold. And then at that point, you're going to obviously need to compost or discard of it.
And yeah, the first time ever, so I like to order avocados from Costco. And when I get them, they're usually rock hard. So we have like this whole system. We wait for them to ripen, then we put them in the fridge, and that slows down the ripening process. And then we start using them. But this week, for some reason, they were all like super ripe. So I decided to freeze some of it. So just take some of it out and freeze it. And then you can use it for certain things. You can't use it for all of the same things you would if they were fresh, but that really helps because avocados are precious. I'm like, I am not losing these gems. So you can definitely do that with a lot of things. I love those tips. Okay. Another question that you addressed in the book is the best before dates. So should we strictly obey those? Tell us a little bit about these best before dates.
Yeah, so best before dates we take very literally in North America, when in reality, they're exactly what the name suggests, best before. So that doesn't mean as soon as the best before date hits that something is immediately not consumable. I want to preface this by saying if there are any signs of mold on your food or a smell, you are best to discard that. I am not suggesting that anybody eats spoiled food, but you should take these best before dates with a grain of salt, because oftentimes something will go past. Like even I see like almond milk and soy milk will like go a day past the spoilage date, and then people are pouring it down the drain. As long as it tastes and smells and does not have signs of mold, it should be safe to consume. But always do your own kind of test to make sure, looking for those signs before you throw it away.
What do you think is the hardest thing for people to get used to or wrap their brains around when it comes to scrappy cooking? Like something that maybe is just, it's a little too weird for me. I'm not sure if I'm going to be able to try that. But maybe once they try it, they're like, oh, it's not so bad.
Yeah, I think it's this concept of eating food that you might not have grown up eating. I think anything new is intimidating and like you're a little bit wary of it. So one that I often see is when I tell people that they can eat the stems of the broccoli. So they'll get their broccoli, and perhaps you're paying for your broccoli by weight at the grocery store. And if you're doing that, you're paying for the full thing. The stem is very heavy, and then you're throwing out the stems. So broccoli stems are such a delicious treat. They taste a lot like broccoli. You just peel the really tough outer edge, and then you can slice them into like fries and bake them. I have a really good broccoli stem summer roll recipe in my book where you slice them into matchsticks, similar to matchstick carrots, and you roll them up in rice paper, and they are absolutely delicious. So that's one that always comes to mind where people are a little bit like, oh, I had no idea you could eat that. And then once they try it, they don't throw out their broccoli stems again. You can even just like grate them into a stir fry. There's so many versatile ways that you can have them.
I'm pretty sure that's what they use for broccoli slaw too, like the kind of broccoli slaw you can buy in the grocery store. I'm pretty sure they're using the stems and it's delicious. I know you're busy. So am I. But do you have 2 minutes? If you have just 2 minutes, you have enough time to eat healthy, nutritious meals. The solution to your overscheduled life is Factor's delicious, ready-to-eat meals. These meals are chef-crafted, fresh, and never frozen, and they are delivered straight to your doorstep. They offer a weekly menu of 35 options, including vegan and veggie meals. They also have 60 add-ons each week, including breakfast, snacks, and beverages like smoothies and juices. The fresh juice shots are so good. This week, I got to try the peanut Buddha bowl that had sweet potatoes, broccoli, quinoa, veggies, and a yummy peanut sauce, and the tangy citrus tofu bowl that included cauliflower rice, sweet potato, tofu, edamame, chickpeas, and a tangy citrus sauce. They were super yummy. My husband and my son loved them too. The meals feature premium ingredients, and because they are fully prepared and ready to heat, it eliminates the hassle of prepping, cooking, and cleaning up. It's an amazing option for those seasons in life that are particularly time constrained. You can also pause or reschedule deliveries to suit your lifestyle. In April, Factor is celebrating Earth Day all month